Hey guys, how are you? This is Patricia Guzman saying hi from Mexico. Thanks to Artefacto for the invitation. So come along and paint with me. Enjoy! This is going to be dry brush. So over here, I need to mark these two and make sure that the line is similar to the value around the area. Meaning if it's light, then keep the area light or the line light. And if it's a darker area, then make sure that the line is dark. So this is what I did yesterday, just adding some lines. And now it's a good time to add another layer. Now, for example, over here, this is very dark. I already have my super dark areas. And now I'm going to work wet on dry. The first was wet on wet, like, this. I wet the paper and then I add this painting. And then the second is going to be wet and dry because I already have these darks. And if I wet first, then I may risk that the painting goes outside and stains a little bit. So let's do this. Okay. And I'm still thinking in general terms. I am not thinking in details. I just want everything to be, big shapes, big areas. Okay. So my Van Dyke Brown, burnt sienna, this is my ultramarine blue, and a little bit of permanent rose. And I need to go fast. That's, some beauty of watercolor. It is like a really kind of mindfulness technique, because when you are working wet on wet or wet on dry, you really need to be in the here and now. And that's really beautiful of watercolor. Okay. So I'm going to start up and go down. And this is very dark. And then I'm going to be changing the color as I go. And I can squint my eyes so that I reduce the amount of information and detail I'm seeing. I'm just going to think on big shapes, like where the lights are, where the darks are, and continue like that. Come back later to this area. I just need to make sure the edges are soft, and I need to speed up. And we are going to be painting these 3 watercolor portraits using transparent watercolors, wet and wet, wet and dry, dry brush. So come along and paint with me. Enjoy! Um, you can use Viridian green to desaturate a bit the color, and it is going to make a very nice kind of copper kind of color for the skin, for this kind of skin. So, but also use it in very low quantities. Same with purple, just a little bit. And this is very dark. I need to hurry because the neck, I need to move into the neck. The good thing is that right now it's not a lot of, I mean, it's not super hot over here. Otherwise, it will have already dry. So I really pushed this layer. I would normally go lighter and then go back and, you know, just take my time. I'm just doing this in order to show you, you know, a greater advance in the painting, so that when it's a little bit dry, I can show you also dry brush, which is the main way I get into realism. So I'm going to leave the head to dry, and then I'm going to move into the hair to also do something similar as we did. And I always say,
Patricia, are we gonna
sorry?
make a short break now or later?
The hair, it can be right now. It will be a 2-minute kind of
Oh,
layer.
okay. Okay, no
Yeah.
problem.
All right. So big brushes for big areas. Don't be afraid of using jaques. These are amazing. I'm just adding some of the darker tones, and then I'm going to do this magic trick. And I'm going to soften this edge. Then I can see, well, perhaps here's the photo. And we can see I have like a good kind of value map. What I mean is that if I squint my eyes, of course I need to go a little bit darker, but I have like a good foundation. So I can right now try to get some detail. I am going to focus in the eye area so that you can see how I will, I mean, the way I'll solve this is going to be the same way I would solve everywhere around. And also I can see that I need to get some lights from this area, and we can do the little massage, which I really like to do, which is the way I erase. I mean, it's not really erasing, just moving the paint around. So, for example, I will have this is, my clean water. And you can just leave some of the water here. Just leave it to sit over here a little bit. And also here. And then you can pass the napkin. And if I needed it to be lighter, then I can rough. And of course, there are these brushes called scrubbers, which are nice. But with a synthetic brush, it's good. So, okay. So that's the way I would bring some lights. Or if I wanted, this edge to be, nicer, I can just pass some water and then napkin, or I can rough a little bit, just, a little massage. That's it. Over here. If I want smooth edges. Okay, so I'm going to focus on this area. I am mixing my black, which is the sum of Van Dyke brown and ultramarine blue. Napkin. And then I'm going to start adding the the black areas of the eye. And this is dry brush. So I'm taking paint, I'm removing some of it with a napkin. And the napkin is, never underestimate its use. It's actually super important. Do you want me to go closer into the image so that we focus on the eye? Or you can see better the eye? Okay.
Patricia, could you comment a little bit on what you are doing?
Can you say that again, please?
I was saying that, could you comment a little bit on what you are doing?
What's her name?
Sorry?
Oh, sorry, I
No, no,
don't.
no. Maybe comment a little bit on the painting process.
Oh yeah, yeah. This is dry brush. So what I'm doing right now is adding the darker areas around her eye. For example, this will be the eyelashes and, just these darker areas. So I'm just trying to get the darker areas first, and then that way I have kept the light. I have kept the light areas. And right now, what I'm going to do is then I'm going to keep on darkening around her, around this area, because if you squint the eye, I think that students have the reference photo so that you can squint and see that I need to go darker. And right now I am doing dry brush, and I will mix as I go. I don't really have, like pre-mixing. I think it's kind of hard to have that with watercolor. And this is kind of drawing, right? Just going little by little. And every time with dry brush, every time I take paint, I will remove some of it with the napkin to control much better. So I am focusing on going a little bit darker now. I took a lot of permanent rows. I need to desaturate. So always trying to get the good amount of color. So to me, I think that it's very important to have a purpose, to have a reason of why you do what you do. And as I was saying before about, my reasons behind these portraits, I always, tell to my students like how, of course, there is all the information about technique. And however, to ask the question on the why. I mean, of course, we want to paint because we love it and because we feel good and it's an amazing place to be. And if we are fortunate enough to be able to paint, it's amazing. And, we should feel like very thankful for that. And on the other hand, it's like, why are you going to paint? Or what are you going to tell us, to tell the world with your painting? And of course, we don't really need like super grand, reasons. I mean, just to have your why as authentic as you are, because all of us, we are, I mean, we are different, and all of us, we come from different backgrounds and life history, and each life is never the same. And we need to see what each perspective, what each artist is going to give us. And of course, learn and master your techniques and follow your curiosity. but never forget why are you doing what you're doing, right? Well, I mean, to me, that's super important. I really need to have a purpose to what I do. I think that, well, I mean, when I was a teenager, I started reading Carlos Castaneda. Perhaps some of you have read him. And it's the teachings of Don Juan. That's the first book. And Carlos Castaneda, who is an anthropologist, starts to write about the teachings of Don Juan, of his master, who is an Indian Yaqui from the north of Mexico, northwest, and who is a shaman. And Castaneda is his apprentice. And one of the teachings is that we live as, as if we were immortals. And if we live with the consciousness that we are beings, that we are going to die, I mean, of course, it can be sometimes even unbearable, right? But on the other hand, it gives us, like the strength and the perspective to pursue what we really want to do in life. So when we, for example, when we are in a difficult situation and we need to make a decision, if we ask to our death, what will I do if I die in 1 year, or if I die in 2 years or 5 years, or how do I want to spend that time with my life, and what will I like to do? And then instantly it becomes clear, right? And of course, there are a lot of challenges, daily challenges that we are all trying to sort out, right? I mean, life gets, I mean, it seems like there is always a challenge to overcome. So, but in the end, our time is limited. So what are we going to do with our time? Are we going to let, money to be a limit? Or are we going to let whatever outside reason be, a limit to whatever we want to do? And I think that nowadays, if we can learn so much from indigenous people, from their ways of thinking life and the ways of approaching reality as a collective, they are very conscious that they belong to a community and that each other help out to the other one. So there are actually words that don't exist, for example, in Spanish, or I haven't found it in English. Like, for example, Raramuri people in North Mexico, Northwest, they have this word called corima, which means, taking care of the other. Like they know that the community, that all of them that are part of the community, they are, each individual is like an organ in a body. So they know that each one of them is very important. And if one of them is suffering or is in trouble, then the community will try to help out in whatever way they can. But this is not a favor to be returned later. This is, a normal kind of action for them, just to be present and to help it whatever way they can. Now I'm darkening some of the light areas because it was, of course, too light. And this is a very light kind of blue or gray. And one of the mistakes that I normally see is to leave the white of the eye, which is never white, to leave them white. So they are always, some nuances of grays. And I want the darkest darks to be in the eyes because this is the most important area. So I'm just making sure that this is keeping, super dark. Okay, so I've been, painting all this time with dry brush, which is the way that I manage to, or the way I strive to realism, or you can actually achieve hyper-realism with this kind of technique if you would want to. But the way I understand hyper-realism is, like the full copy of the painting, like, I mean, of the photo, like even the surface is smooth as a photo. And of course, you will never see a brush stroke. Everything is blended. So in my case, I don't really strive for that kind of finish. I really like realism a lot. I mean, I feel, of course, very fascinated by it. However, I do let brush strokes to be seen. And perhaps, you will see that when looking in person to my paintings. But also the backgrounds, I like to play a lot with them and just to to make a kind of tension of realism in the face and just to suggest outside. So whatever, I mean, all these things that I'm doing here, I would do that all around the face. And this is what I call la la land, because it's like going deep into a kind of meditative state. And this is the time where I can spend a lot of time depending on the kind of finish that I want. So while this dry, I will move around. And that's also super important to don't keep painting in areas that are fresh, because otherwise you are going to remove the paint. So yeah, I'm just going little by little. And I'm squinting my eyes and I see that I need to go a little bit darker in the upper lid over here. And I also need to go a little bit darker. And of course, nowadays, there are, for good and for bad, we have a lot of information, which is amazing. But what I was saying before is just to hear ourselves, to listen and to follow, right? What our inner being tells us to. Okay, so I'm just comparing and okay, I'm going to work over here on the other areas. And this is a light area, but it doesn't have to be so light. Otherwise, it looks kind of weird. And then I'm going to keep on adding shadows in this area. So I would, pose 2 questions for all of you. And the first one would be, why do you paint? Can anybody share in the chat? Why do you paint? And the other one
Thank
would
you,
be,
Patricia. Thank you.
yes.
Very good question. So, everyone, all the participants, could you share with us why do you paint? One of the questions from Patricia.
Mhm. Yeah. And the other one would be like, what would you paint if, if you knew you are going to die in 2 years? Sorry to be so existentialist.
Yeah, such philosophical questions. Makes me happy for pleasure. It brings me inner peace. Uh, Thank you kindly for what you are doing. I'm very, very much indebted. It makes me smile, freedom. Painting calms me down and helps me find my inner peace. I love to see a person come to life on paper, a great solace to my mind because I cannot live without it. I started as a hobby, now I cannot stop. Oh, yeah, it's very addictive. I agree. To escape trials of everyday life, it makes me happy and peaceful. Painting to create joy. I want to learn how to create art for my family. Um, it keeps my brain stimulated, makes me forget about troubles. To capture the beauty of the places and people I love and just find interesting, relaxing, distressing. Oh my God, so many answers. Patricia, thanks a
Mm.
lot for asking these questions. I think it really makes a lot of sense asking yourself from time to time this question, why do you paint? And another question, philosophical one, what would you paint if you knew that you're gonna die? Oh my God, so many answers, so many answers here. I won't be able to read it out. Oh, paintings and meditation, relaxing. So Tina is answering. She would answer. She would paint people. Megan is gonna paint herself. I would like to share what God is doing in this beautiful world He created. Something nice. A large, colorful painting. Same as now, landscapes and people. Portrait and some landscapes. Ocean. Anything to do with nature. I would paint and do nothing else. Chris is answering. My family. So everything that is important. Yeah. I would paint my loved ones. But she said, do you often ask yourself this type of questions?
Yes, 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 I mean, I do. The first time I read it, it was kind of very shocking, but at the same time, it was very important because it grounded me. So that kind of thinking has led me to be, just to really try to do what I want. And for example, I, when I was a teenager and I wanted to travel, but money was scarce, so it was impossible. And now it's amazing how painting has led me to travel, to I mean, to see so many places and to meet so many people, amazing people. But I suppose it's this kind of thinking wouldn't have given me the enough force or strength. Um, and perhaps I wouldn't have taken big decisions over my life without this kind of thinking. So, and I mean, of course, it has led me to live other adventures um, that now may seem a little bit hectic, like like moving to the Caribbean Sea to live by the south of Cancun, Playa del Carmen. So we spent the second part of the pandemic over there, which was amazing. But then it was like, I mean, it's great, but we need, we need museums and we need culture and exhibitions. So now we move to also the center of the country, to another city, Querétaro, which we are very happy here. However, I mean, uh, I thought I really want to live by the sea, and now it's the time because everything became online and we were, just free to be whatever we wanted to. So yeah, now I'm going to leave this area alone and I'm going to move a little bit into the hair so you can see how I would, unify both areas. And I will do that by darkening a little bit because this area needs to go a little bit darker. And then I can simply keep on, going dark around here. And I switched to this kind of brush, which is really great for this kind of detail. It's like a super, I mean, not expensive kind of brush, synthetic one. And the more used it is, the better, because when you dry it, then you can have a very nice kind of texture for these areas. And as you can see, I mean, the white hair is never white in the same way that the teeth are never white, or what is called the white of the eye is never white. They are some sort of gray depending on the area that the person is, but we also have some sort of skin kind of color over there in a very light way. So right now I'm just darkening, and then I will move into this area, and I would make sure that everything is unified and in harmony. I mean, in the faces, there are never hard edges. So it's just making sure that everything is moving nicely into its adjacent area. Okay. And this needs to go darker. And so little by little, we will get there. Perhaps we could solve some of the questions, of the remaining questions from the first part.
Yeah,
While
Patricia, there was a question about which type of paper do you use?
I I like to use Arches paper. This is cold press, 300 grams. And this is the best option for me because it has, a kind of nice, smooth texture, and it allows me to paint whatever image I want to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Always make
Could you
sure it's
show?
100% cotton paper. I
Okay.
mean, of course, Arches is, but if you're using other brand, always make sure it's 100%, because then you will be allowed to add as many layers as you wish.
Okay. Okay. Um, are you gonna show in the course how to do the drawing?
No, yeah, no, we don't see the drawing. Yeah. Yeah,
How
it's
would?
focused on painting.
Mhm. So it's gonna be purely devoted to the painting, but Patricia is also sharing the drawing, so you can basically trace it or use any other method. Yeah. There are also courses at Artifacta where we go deep into it, because that's like the whole like completely different topic. And in order to learn it, you like in order to understand the logic behind it, yeah, how to do the drawing right, um, you need to master it. Yeah. I think that was the logic why we didn't include the drawing part, right?
Yes. Mhm. Oh, sorry.
Uh, how do you stretch the paper?
Okay. I use this, how do you call it? Gummed
Tape?
paper. And I just do the traditional way of stretching paper. I have wood. This is a MDF panel of wood. And then I will wet the paper and place it over here. And with the gum paper, I will basically, put it inside the water over here, and then I'll just put it around the paper. And I really like to do that because um, it will keep the paper flat. And because I add so many layers, I really need to have everything, flat and nice. If I was using masking tape, after some time it would start to, to make this, um, um, to become like this. I don't know how to say it.
Sorry?
That if I use masking tape, it will,
Mm-hmm.
every time it dry, it will dry but crumbles. Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
So I prefer to use the gum paper so that it becomes completely flat. Mhm.
Yeah. Uh, there was a question, how you gonna paint those gray hair, like those small tiny gray hair?
Yeah, I would normally suggest them. I wouldn't, be painting all of them.
Mm-hmm.
But I would, for example, when I start to darken around, for example, over here, because this area needs to go darker, then I
Mm-hmm.
would just leave some areas, like I would do negative painting. For example, do something like this, and then just darken around that area.
Yeah,
And
Monique. So answering your question, what course we can take for the drawing? There is a beginner course for drawing. Um, my team is gonna send you a link to this course. So basically, there we talk a lot about the basic shapes, the basic forms, and how to apply it in different subjects, not only portraits, but different subjects like landscape, still life, and everything. Because everything what we see and everything what we paint actually consists of this basic forms, and there are not so many of them. There are just a few of them, and you need to learn how to combine it. And it also helps you not only to do the drawing, but also to think about the volume, yeah, how to create this 3D effects in your paintings. Um, there was Patricia. There was also a question on colors which we used for the first layer. Could you name the colors which you used for mixing for the first layer?
Yes, they were raw sienna, permanent rose, ultramarine blue, basically. I will have already mixed my purple, the permanent rose, and ultramarine blue. And it was a very smooth color combination of them, which actually is, they are the same colors. I mean, in this case, in the second layer, I have added the Van Dyke brown, but it would be like the same color mixing. But I will be changing that color depending on the area. For example, if I was, in here, it's kind of more pinkish, so I will have used more permanent rose. And in this area, which is lighter, the light areas tend to be cooler, so I would have added a little bit more purple in this area. And over here, I would have used more burnt sienna because it's more orangey kind of color.
Thank you. There was also a question how to make large prints of your. How do you make large prints of your photos?
Large prints?
I don't know. Yeah, but who asked this question about the prints? Could you specify it, because I also don't understand what you meant. And there is also a question: do you ask permission from people you paint? Just permission to paint people you make pictures from?
Yes, I mean, when we are into these celebrations, or in these communities, we will ask for the leader permission, because I mean, they are always leader, and they will, ask between them. And well, I mean, we've been very lucky to have been granted access each time, because it's actually, it can be an issue. For example, people, like national photography, I mean, national photographers. Well, I mean, this big institution in the US, they can go to the Raramuri celebrations, or, different kind of celebrations. And sometimes, even though they have traveled that much, and the leaders can say no, right? And then they won't have access. So, I mean, so far we've been, we've been accepted into the different areas that we've been, also in Peru, or wherever we are, we've been, granted access. So that's really nice.
Thank you. How did you light up the parts around the nose area?
Can you say that again, please?
How did you light it? So how did you make the area around the nose light?
I did the little massage, which was basically with clean water. And for example, you can say, like, I really for example, here, I want this to be lighter. So you can either just leave some water over here and then do this.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want more, you can repeat, or you can actually do a little bit of rubbing. And that's it. Mm-hmm. It works every time.
Thank you. So basically lifting.
So what I've been doing is I want to show you up close. Now you can see much more information in this area, which has been practically dry brush. And you can see that I left this area a little bit lighter, so there is this spark of light. However, I kept the surrounding area a little bit darker. What I first started to do was to darken these areas, to paint the darkest darks. And then I started to, to darken a little bit the light areas that didn't need to be so light. And over here, I kept this light area. However, it doesn't need to be super light. And I added this grays, right? And little by little, I've been darkening, and my brush stroke will follow the shape of the area that I'm painting. For example, over here, I was painting like this, or over here, I was painting in this direction, or, depending on the area, I will switch the way my brush stroke goes, because the value will give the volume, but the direction of my brush stroke is going to help as well. And over here, I added this dark, which allowed me to unify the face with the hair, because that's also another mistake I regularly see, like, leaving the hair apart as if it was, another area. And we want to make sure that everything is unified and, everything is in harmony. And even though we see the wrinkles and the textures, I mean, in the face, there is never a hard edge. Of course, if the person has makeup, then it's going to be another issue. But without makeup, it's everything is, all the face becomes like a sea of skin, and where you will see all these smooth color transitions, value transitions, S transitions, edge transitions, temperature. For example, the shadow tend to be warmer, whereas the light areas tend to be cooler. And so what I would do, I would continue the same way, the same thing I applied here, I would continue over here. And of course, I would normally, go like, of course, I would go, just taking my time and do these smooth color transitions. And so basically what I've done, it's the same what I do with my paintings. And that's why it will take a lot, because, just adding this, this is, just taking my time, and it's as if I was kind of drawing,